Today I want to talk about how we decided to start growing corn on our farm. So last year we picked up a half section of land right near my place. It was split up into three different pieces. We had a field we put into sunflowers, a field we put into canola, and then we had this pasture. So this section here, it had been pasture as long as I could remember. It had to have been over 20 years. And so we were going to last spring, and it was sod, it was pounded out. Cattle had been on it how many years prior. And our plan was, well, we will just work it. We'll hit it 3 or 4 times with a disc, chop up the sod, and then we're gonna put something in. We were kind of leaning towards, let's put flax in. We don't have flax anywhere else on the farm, so then it's its own piece and we don't have to worry about it affecting other acres. And so we were planning on going with flax, but me and my brother have always wanted to grow corn. You look at any big farm in the area, who's making the most money? People growing corn. So my brother was talking with a neighbor, and the neighbor suggested, hey, why don't you just put some corn in, see what happens? And we thought that was a great idea. So then we started planning to go with corn, and the planter that my dad bought, it came with corn plates. And so we were like, that's a great idea. We'll do corn. Spring came and it was a wet spring. So we went from being able or thinking that we could hit this thing a bunch, bust up the sod, to saying, hey, we're going to have to direct seed this right into the sod. And we're going to have to see what happens, but we're going to give it a shot. So because it was the planter and our tractor has tracks on it, this was a wet field, but because of the sod, we could go on it earlier than a lot of other fields. So we came out here and we direct seeded into the sod. My brother was pulling the planter through standing water, and it was a really interesting experience, but I quite enjoyed it because we were growing corn. Like, we've always wanted to try it. So we figured, hey, we'll put it in and then we'll see how the year progresses and how we want to deal with it. So when he was in here with the planter, we had the closing wheels as heavy as possible, lots of down pressure. We couldn't even close our trenches that the corn was going in, but we were growing corn. This is what we were gonna do. So after direct seeding it into that pasture, we were talking with our agronomist. We were figuring out nutrients. We wanted to give it a good shot. We wanted to make this corn thing work because we knew in the future we want to expand and do more. So it came out of the ground. At this point, we were still trying to burn off the grass. We had hit it a couple times with Roundup. We should have got in there with something stronger earlier, but we thought the Roundup would get it done. So it was coming out the ground. We had neighbors telling us and our agronomist saying, oh, they'd be surprised if it got above knee height. This isn't gonna work. And I mean, I guess it was just a good year to grow corn. And no, it wasn't anything we did. It just worked out well. So the season was progressing and this corn was growing and it was doing really well. So come around August and September, we were going into this cornfield thinking, hey, we'll get this thing silaged, we'll get it off so that we can hit the ground now in the fall before things freeze and get it prepped for next season. Because we're still just trying to get the sod busted up and everything. But we were talking to some people about silage and pricing, and we were counting the rows and kernels on the cobs, and we were like, wow, we've got a crop here, and we were starting to think this might pay better if we harvest this. So this is September already. We're thinking we're gonna silage it. Now we're thinking we're gonna harvest it. We've got this corn, but we don't own a corn header. So it's September and now I'm scrambling. I gotta find us a header. So this was nearing the end of September. I'm looking everywhere to find a corn header. We got 30-inch rows, and there was one header on Kijiji in 30-inch rows, and it happened to work for a Lexion combine. It was a Cat 830. It was about 4 hours away. Up here in Canada, there's really not a whole lot of selection for corn headers. So, I mean, this was kind of the only thing on the market. It was almost October, so I really didn't have much leverage on this guy. He was selling it for $5,500. I called him, I was trying to haggle. I got him to sell it to me for $5,000. So I think I picked it up at the beginning of October. I called him, I was like, hey, I'm gonna head out there and pick up this header. He's like, all right, if you don't though, there's a guy coming tomorrow to get it. So I was like, okay, well, I'll be there. So I drove out there, I picked up this header. It was snowing, it was terrible conditions, but we found a header. We could go out there and we could harvest our corn. So I picked up this header. It hadn't been used in 5 years. I went over it, I made some adjustments, I checked all the levels, and then we went out there and we started to harvest corn. And it was quite the experience because this is the first year I had a new combine, and it was the first year I've ever done corn. So there was a lot to learn. So we went out there, I harvested for 4 or 5 hours, but there was snow on the corn, and it was too mild, and it was icing up my machine. But being out there for those few hours, I learned how to set the deck plates. I realized the things that I needed to fix on the header. So it gave me a good introduction, and then I got the header ready for the next time we went out to do this corn. So I made all the adjustments that I needed to that corn header, and then December 17th, I think, or 16th, we went out there and we finished off the rest of the corn that we had. So that pasture was 70 acres. It was a good introduction to corn. We enjoyed it from the start of the season to the end of the season, and we thought it was a good experience. So we were thinking we were going to do more corn next year, and after doing that, I realized, hey, I could throw a lot of money into this header because there was some spots that needed work, decent amount of header loss. But I was like, man, if we're going to do more corn, let's just sell the header and then buy a newer chopping header that was in better condition, so that I didn't have to put all this work into this old one, because that field that it has to be hit with a disc, it's a mess still because of all the stalks. So we bought the header beginning of October, and in the beginning of January I sold that header. I think I sold it for $8,000. It was the only thing on the market, again, because up in Canada there's nothing. But so that header's gone. Now I'm looking for a chopping header. This year we grew 70 acres. Next year we're thinking we're going to grow 700 acres of corn. So, I mean, we are going for it, but we liked it, and the budgets check out. We might as well grow some corn. So that pasture, once all dried and weighed, we ended up getting 120 bushel an acre corn off of that pasture that we direct seeded into, that people told us it wasn't even going to get past our needs, which was an awesome experience, and it really made us want to do more. And that's why we're going to go from 70 acres last year to 700 acres this year.